Welcome to the Jared Williams Show. Welcome back. We got Chaz Wolf in today. What's up, man?
Whoop, whoop. Thanks for having me, Jared. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, anytime. You can come back on next week if you want.
We'll do the same thing. Just I'm going to ask you all the questions next week.
Yeah, there you go. It'll be a short podcast.
Hey, you've got some experience.
Getting there. We're getting there. Cool, man. So, I mean, we've been chatting a little bit before the podcast.
Yeah.
I got to know a little bit about you.
Yeah.
You've got, what is the name of your program?
Gathering the Kings.
Gathering the Kings.
Yeah, GTK for life.
GTK for life on your shirt. Okay. I'm not going to remember that. So you're going to have to remind me. And then you've got a construction company.
Yep.
When did you start that?
3 years ago.
So you've been working on construction for 3 years.
Yep.
And you also have a fruit slicing business.
Yeah, we are a franchisee of a franchise system. It's a gift business called Edible Arrangements.
Cool.
And I've got a real estate portfolio as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you've got an Edible Arrangements here. Is that your last one?
I used to have 7 across 3 states, and here in Pensacola has always been my little golden child. They're a great team, and I've always enjoyed coming down for the holidays. So I'm here technically for the Mother's Day holiday.
Cool.
I said my goodbyes earlier, told them I was going to a podcast and that I'd see them tomorrow.
Nice.
And they're like slaying away.
Just because it's so busy for Mother's Day?
Yeah. I mean, a couple 100x what we normally do.
That's crazy. So do you own a home here?
I do not.
No.
Thought about it years ago. We bought the store 9 years ago. And, Pensacola, it's the beach. Maybe I could be 6 months in one day, be a Florida resident.
Yeah, there you go.
And there's some benefits to that, but it just never materialized enough for us to, do all that. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Right on. So tell me how you got to guy who owns 3 businesses and some real estate.
Yeah.
Like, where'd you grow up? Where'd you come from?
Yeah, I grew up in Columbia, Missouri, and a single mom family. Honestly, was the upbringing, and it was, I would say, probably a normal childhood, but that's what I would consider normal because that's what I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing what I know now of how families are built, it probably wasn't normal. My wife and I have 4 kids, and we're extremely intentional with our family and how we do things inside the house. And none of that is like a knock on my mom at all. She just was a single mom trying to do the best that she could,
Yeah.
And so, there was not a lot in my world at that time, but I had the grit and the gumption to just want more.
Mm-hmm.
And I just learned from her, working multiple jobs and really always just never giving up, never really giving excuses, honestly. It's like literally multiple jobs, toting me and my sister around to sports and all things. And she was at everything. And so I just learned no excuses. And if you want something, go get it. And no one was coming to save me.
Yeah.
So grew up pretty fast in that environment, honestly. Oldest son is just me and my sister. So a lot of times I felt or found myself being more of a partner, to my mom than a child, which forced me to grow up fast, make decisions earlier in life than maybe most kids have to. But all those things are what have, made me who I am, so no regret.
You're the oldest?
I'm the oldest, of the 2.
How much older?
About 18 months.
18 months.
Yeah, so we were pretty close in age, and pretty close individually, like as in a relationship, I mean. But we just had to figure it out. That's what it was.
Growing up without a dad, that make you feel kind of responsible for your sister?
Yes. Really responsible for the family because it was my mom's mom, my grandma, who's with me here this weekend, as well as my mom is as well.
Cool.
They're both over at the store right now, and it's Mother's Day weekend, so how can you not, right?
Yeah.
They've done it with me for years now, so it was them 2 and then my sister, and so it's like I really felt responsible for the whole thing. And then later, so I'm 24. Fast forward to 24, I find out who my dad is.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't even know I existed.
Oh, really?
So it's kind of a weird story there. But so I have 4 other siblings, 3 sisters and a brother that I didn't even know about. Grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncles, cousins, a huge family. My last name Wolf comes from my dad.
Gotcha.
And so it wasn't always Wolf. I changed it when I met him. So kind of a cool story there. But yeah, grew up in that kind of gritty environment and always wanting more. I was pretty ambitious as a kid, mowing lawns and doing all this, selling candy bars. Like I was talking to, we do some youth programming for our members inside of our community, success principles and how to make money as a kid and stuff like that. And one of our first first talks, we were talking about this a little bit with, offering candy bars, and that doesn't happen as much door to door in today's environment.
It doesn't.
It's a little bit weird.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm a sucker, even still to this day. You come to my door, I'm telling you right now, you come to my door and you sell me anything and you're under the age of 16, I'm buying it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why not, right?
I don't even care what it is.
I don't care what it is. If you can get it out of your mouth and pitch me, I'm buying.
Oh, yeah.
I just think it's like my obligation and duty, because what that instilled in me as a kid, my goodness, I became bulletproof,
Yeah.
So, your kids do any of that?
No.
Mine haven't yet.
My kids had it easy.
I'm like,
I didn't really do any like door-to-door sales or anything, but I mowed lawns.
Yeah.
I painted. I cleaned up leaves, like whatever I could do around people's houses. That's
for sure.
I always did that.
Yeah.
Up until like I got a job one time in high school working at Safeway. It's a grocery store.
Yeah.
And I worked for 5 days, just long enough to get a new skateboard, and I quit because I was like, it was miserable.
Yeah.
And like I would always go get jobs painting somebody's house or mowing their yard or something, some sort of thing around the house.
Yeah.
My mom and dad would just ask their friends if they need anything, and I'd have a job.
Exactly.
And
you were creative enough in those moments.
Well, it was way more fun than bagging groceries at the grocery store. That was miserable.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Yeah. We live on some acreage, and so I'm constantly, my kids are still pretty young, 11 down to 2, but I'm like, I need to figure out a neighborhood somewhere, and you guys are going to walk these neighborhoods, you're going to knock on these doors, and you're going to sell something because,
mowing yards pays better now too.
Yeah, seriously.
Way better than when I was a kid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was like $5-6 to mow. I would mow my neighbor's yard, and it would take me 2 hours, and they'd pay me $6.
Wow.
And I was stoked.
Yeah.
And now I feel like you'd be probably $30, $40.
Yeah. At least.
At least.
Some of these companies are much more than that. It's funny. My wife she didn't make fun, but she kind of jeers at like like you had a lawn mowing business, when you're 12, 13. I'm like, no, I they were handwritten invoices, but like I was doing the thing. Okay.
It's legit.
It was legit-ish.
That's funny.
Yeah. So yeah, growing up in that environment was about winning, man. Well, I don't know about, I like to win now, I would say, but back then it was probably more survival than anything,
Yeah.
So
real quick.
Yeah.
I think you're the first other fully bearded individual on the podcast.
I know. I was going to say, it's like looking in a beard mirror here.
My mama always said, never trust a guy with a clean shaven face. So here we are.
Here we are, two beautiful bearded men.
That's funny.
It is a thing that I get comments on almost every single, especially if I'm on a Zoom call. If it's another guy, obviously, I don't get too many female comments, thank goodness. But the dude who doesn't have the beard is always like, dude, nice beard. And the dude that has the beard's like, dude.
How old are you?
I'm 38.
38.
Yeah.
At what age could you actually grow a good beard?
Grow a good beard? I've probably had this beard for probably 5 years ish.
Yeah.
I could grow it before. I didn't grow it very long. I tried to. And my wife was pregnant with one of our kids and just could not deal with maybe I didn't know what beard oil was at that time, but she was just like, it would just, no. I don't know if it was a smell or what, but, so she made me cut it. In fact, I went on a goat hunt with my dad in 2015. I was trying to grow it out for the first time then. It was a little shorter than it is now. And she was like, I'm over it. You either cut it or I'm cutting it in your sleep,
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, well, I got this goat hunt. Like, I'm not going to go on the goat hunt without the beard. Come on,
Yep.
So it was like literally the day that I got back from the hunt, she was like, enough.
Yep.
Like, okay, fine. But then when I grew it back out, probably about 5 years ago now, maybe 5.5, she was like, I kind of like it.
Yep.
Kind of turning her on a little
Yep.
bit. I was like,
it's just a matter of time.
And now in marketing, like you probably can't ever get rid of it. Like it's just part of the deal.
I grew mine out. I grew it out, and we got more views when I had a beard.
Yeah.
That's why I have
There you go.
beard.
There's your marketing hack.
Yeah. Yep. It's like,
get a beard.
I don't know.
Get more views.
If I shave my beard, you can go watch my old stuff and see me without a beard. I look like I'm 12.
I was gonna say you look young.
Yeah. Very young. Yep. I have a very small chin, and then the beard kind of gets rid of that.
I find the same thing, like, especially because I've got kind of like this little swoop thing on top. It's like, okay, so I got this long face, and then if you chop this off, it's like, well, what happened to your face?
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Even actually, I just trimmed it probably about a month ago. And I I gave it a good little trim. And my 11-year-old was like, don't ever do that again. You know? Don't ever do that again.
Never again.
Okay.
All right, let's get back to your story.
Yeah.
Where'd we leave off?
Yeah. So grew up in a single mom house. You know, I got married pretty young. So my wife and I met in high school, and we got married just a couple of years out of high school. So we've been married for 17 years this month, actually. Been together for 20.
Congrats.
Thanks, man. And the reason why I could probably say that is because it kind of just defines who I am a little bit, not necessarily the marriage, but because I grew up the way that I did, you know, making decisions early, becoming more of a partner than a child.
Yep.
I kind of just knew what I wanted. Not necessarily maybe the exact thing in life, but I knew I wanted to be married. I knew I wanted a good woman. I knew I needed a partner to like do life with, which might sound opposite because I didn't see any of that, you know?
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I kind of think it was just favor from the Lord. But we met in high school and it was like, okay, like, no, this is the one. And I knew instantly.
Yep.
I'm 18 years old. And she didn't know right away, but I knew. And so I put a ring on it a few years later, and it literally has been what I would say is probably the catalyst or the like fuel underneath all of the ambition. A lot of people see that, you know, the Chaz Wolf or the Chaz Wolf brand or Gathering the Kings or all these businesses and what millions and entrepreneur and employees. But it's like, dude, if I hadn't have met her early, I don't know. There's some ways maybe think that I would have more, but it wouldn't be worth anything.
Yeah.
You know, because I wouldn't have been as distracted. But then there's the other part of me like, no, actually she was the fuel that's made me who I am.
Yeah.
And maybe it could have been bigger if I was single, you know, but man, it's like, it's the glue.
Would you have wanted to if you were single?
Exactly.
That's where I go. Like my ambitions before I got married, I was going to work at Subway in Australia and live on the beach.
Yeah.
That was my ambitions.
Yeah, you were ready.
Maybe have like an old junky Subaru. And then, you know, I like you, I got married young, had kids young. Like I had kids before I got out of high school.
Wow.
And you met him.
Yeah.
That kid out there, that little booger out there. And
who I thought was a grown man in your shop as an employee, which he is.
He is a grown man. Yeah.
Yeah.
And which was cool having a kid so young because we grew up together, basically.
Yeah.
And
now you get to do cool stuff together.
Yeah, now he's more grown up than I am. That's the sad part. But yeah, my wife was it forced me to grow up quicker, faster. I had mouths to feed. I had to go to work, and I, you look at your kids and you look at your wife and you're like, I need to give them a better life than what we got right now.
Yeah, than the Subaru and the beach.
Yeah, and really, my wife is the smart one. So she's the one who keeps me sane.
Yeah.
I'll go home stressed out, thinking about a bunch of stuff, and she'll knock some common sense into me.
Yeah. It's the peace. It's the calm.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
You know, Napoleon Hill, he wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich, but we go pretty deep on his stuff inside of our program. But it's like there's real tangible stuff that he talked over 100 years ago related to success about the woman.
Yeah.
You know, and not necessarily that she needs to be in the business per se. And we've got a lot of clients that they run it together, and that's fantastic. But even in like our scenario where Julie's not in the businesses, she homeschools our kids. She's very much kind of the traditional at home. But man, like even if it's just the chatting afterwards, like you're talking about the stressful day or whatever, and whether it's just the calm and the peace, or if it's just the excitement to be able to go build something new, or if it's her kind of like, you know, safeguarding some of my ideas. Like she would tell you that early on it was like an idea every hour. And that was like stressing her out. She had to realize that like half of these aren't even going to make them to next week. You know, and to not stress at all and just kind of let me process it and to be that calm and peace, and things shake down and they end up being okay, you know?
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've had that same blessing.
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of times missed as like that fuel piece.
Yeah.
We talk about inside of our group, like, you know, there's success in the business, success at home, in the marriage and the kids and your health and your faith and, you know, all these things that we're like constantly pressing on. It's like all this work, but it's like, you know, the marriage piece, it's kind of like the ultimate mastermind. You know, you can have your mastermind that Napoleon Hill talks about. You can have your group, you can have your crew, you can have your whatever, but you know, that piece between you and her, it's like, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
When you got it lockstep, you know.
Yep.
And there's just like real work that you can do to keep leveling that up. You know, I was telling you earlier, we do a family mastermind vacation in the summer where, you know, husbands, wives, sometimes the both of them, they're entrepreneurs, sometimes just one, but they bring the kids and we go to an exclusive resort somewhere. But we go like hard on the marriage piece because it's like, man, in the nucleus or in the midst of all the family, the nucleus is that marriage. Mm-hmm. You know, in the midst of all the businesses and all the money and all the things, and it's like, man, if that marriage isn't right,
the money and the things ain't gonna do you no good.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's tough. So yeah, got married young. Sounds like you did as well. And got into business pretty early. I bought my first franchise when I was 24, 25. I was in sales before that at the company I mentioned earlier, so maybe we'll dig into that a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I was excited about being a business owner. I didn't know why. Like, I didn't know what it was about. I just knew I wanted to do my own thing. And so building sales teams, becoming a pretty, astute salesperson, you know, a sales professional, and then leading sales teams. I knew that was the next step for me, was to build businesses. And so I looked at for probably close to 2 years before I bought my first business. And I looked at, you know, service companies. I never felt confident buying a service company originally because I'm not handy at all. So which is hilarious now that I'm in construction. But I never, I looked at all kinds of other stuff too. A bunch of franchises, non-franchises, but we ended up with Edible Arrangements was the first purchase. And then basically 4 years later, I had 7 locations, 3 states, about 65, 70 employees, and it kind of took off.
So did you buy like an existing franchise that was already running?
The first 2 were existing. And then I built a brand new 3rd one, built a brand new 4th one, built a brand new 5th one, bought the one in Pensacola, was number 6, and then built a brand new one, number 7, back in Kansas City.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so 3 purchases, 4 brand new starts, all within about a 4-year period, which was, you know, like we were talking earlier about, you know, revenue as a top line and kind of a, you know, for what they say, revenues for vanity, profits for sanity.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I'm 24, 20, 25, 26, 27. I'm the youngest franchisee in the system doing things at this scale. I'm winning local awards, national awards, you know, but the truth is that I was taking all the money back in and putting it into the next location, because we were just growing so fast. And I was talking about this with my business partner in Gathering the Kings now just a couple of days ago. And it's like, I don't know if I would necessarily have changed it per se.
Yeah.
But that very chaotic growth period is like, man, we could have just, I know things now to where it maybe would have taken it longer.
Yep.
But it just would have been smoother. You know, we were talking about that with one of your companies.
Yeah.
You know, you just know how to skip certain things.
Yeah.
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 But back then it felt like progress. It felt like I was doing something.
Right.
You know, which it was just spending money on something probably.
Yeah.
Know, and losing hair, you know, or turning my beard gray before I had it, you know.
Yeah. At the same time though, like you probably could, did they ever get to where they were like making you decent money?
Yeah. Oh,
after
for sure.
7 of them?
Yes. Yeah. It just took years.
Yeah.
You know, which is, I think, probably accurate. But
I took about 2.5 years to scale my plumbing business. Made $0 for 2.5 years.
Right.
And I probably could have gone slower and made some money along the way. But at the same time, like I think about the risk involved having, you know, versus like starting out and versus to the point I got to.
Right.
Where I have so much more cash coming in to offset the risk at that point. I would almost want to get there faster.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that you learn things along the way that you wouldn't have learned if you had gone slower.
True. Yeah.
You know, some of those trial by fire things, and you're like, you know, I know that burner's hot now. We don't need to go that direction.
We don't need
or
to
I know
there.
how to turn it on a little slower so we can still cook over there.
Yep.
But it doesn't have to burn down the whole place.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a look on your face. It's like, oh man, there's a story.
Oh, dude. I made so many mistakes. It was ridiculous. I mean, and we scaled so fast that like a whole bunch of mistakes, you know, show their face all at once. And
oh yeah.
And there was like a while where we were losing 20, 30 grand a month. And we just,
and everyone thinks you're crazy in those moments.
Oh, everybody thought I was crazy until they found out like 2.5 years later when it's a $5 million business and we're making over $1 million a year. Right. Then I'm really cool. Right.
Yeah.
But before that, I'm just wild.
Right.
Everybody thinks I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
But it was fun.
You know, that process that you just described, obviously similar to my story as well. Almost similar numbers too, actually. But, you know, it's like I have found, and I've seen this in other people as well, that if you can just last.
Oh yeah.
So sometimes it's just about the pocket.
Yeah.
You know, whether you have to, get an original SBA loan to buy something, or you have to just reach into your own coffers.
Yep.
But that's really all it is like the crazy eventually works. It's just
yeah.
a matter of how fast you burn through the money.
Yep. Yes. After coaching, so I've privately coached probably 20 or 30 business owners over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I've watched some, they come in and they get to success really fast. And I've watched some, they just struggle bus. The ones who never give up, they eventually make it. The difference between the two are just the amount of lessons they have to learn on their own. Things that I can't teach them.
Yeah.
Things that they have to feel and go, oh, I get that.
Adjustment needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they all eventually figure it out though, as long as they don't quit.
Yeah.
They all have eventually like had that moment all of a sudden where it's like, this thing is working and somehow there's an extra $100,000 in my bank account.
Right.
And then they all just keep that going.
Would you say, I mean, because I'm going to liken this to what that piece there, but that mindset, is it, or I guess I'm asking, is it mindset that changes for them, or is it systems? Is it tactical?
It's a little of both. Yeah. Okay. It's mindset. I mean, I feel like they can't change some of the systems and the tactical stuff without changing the mindset first.
Sure. Yeah.
So some of them, it's like they got to learn the mindset. Like some of them freak out for no reason.
Right.
All sorts of mindset issues. Once they deal with their mindset issues, or they've gone through this fire and get more comfortable with things, then they can go and actually make like rational decisions. They can start, tracking data, make data-driven decisions, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Whereas before they couldn't.
Yeah.
It's a little of both though. The ones who go really fast, the mindset's good. Like they come in and they're ready to rock and roll, and they've got control over their home life, and they've had control over their personal finances. They've been successful at work before.
Yeah.
And they started a business and they're ready to rock and roll. And you just have to teach them the steps, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Or even you don't have to teach them all the steps. They'll figure a bunch of the steps out.
Yep.
If they just have the basic idea or platform and they just rock and roll with that thing.
Yeah.
The ones who have had marriage problems, they have kids problems, their home life is hard, they don't have their diet in order, they don't exercise. They've never really been like uber successful just at work in their own job, and then they go start this business.
Right.
They have all this back stuff that we got to deal with before they can ever be successful at business. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
They're not in the right state of mind. Their brain isn't even firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with all of that. I think that assessment is true, because you can't go be something in a business that you haven't become.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to become this perfect person.
Yep.
Right. But I think the mindset piece is huge. Even in my own story, I'm 24 years old. I don't know a thing about running a business. In fact, I was literally sitting down with the business broker. I almost bought a 2-location dry cleaners. And I'm like, hey, can you help me understand this P&L?
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand like it's the money, but like, can you help me understand? And I'm sure he was like, oh my goodness. Are you, you're considering buying this $500,000 business right now at 20?
The guy who's going to give you the loan, or the business broker?
No, the business broker.
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't asking the bank that.
That'd be bad.
Yeah. But I'm sure he was like in that moment going, oh my goodness, but so I didn't know the tactical.
Yeah.
I just needed someone to show me.
Yeah.
But I had been reading books and listening to videos, and like I was ready in the mindset.
Yeah.
I had been crushing my sales career for years at that point. I was just chomping at the bit for the next achievement.
That's a rad head start. Cause like I remember owning a business, wanting to be successful at it, and like thumbing through Instagram, watching like Grant Cardone and all these guys, and they're all like mindset. And I'm thinking like, what does that even mean?
Right.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like I stepped into the business and realized, oh, there's character traits of myself. I have to do some growing to make this business work.
Yeah, that's right.
That my mindset was able to change. It was the doing that changed my mindset.
Yeah.
And
well, it gave you opportunities to reflect and see yourself differently.
Yeah. Well, really for my wife to reflect.
Yeah.
And be like,
true.
You suck at this. And
yeah.
I'd be like, oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. Well, and good for you for being able to hear that.
Yeah. I mean,
how many people have been in that scenario, and she even says something, and he doesn't listen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or he has a buddy that says something, or he spends money on a mastermind community, and we try to say something, and and he still doesn't change it, and you're like, okay, why do you pay me?
Yeah.
You know, that scenario of growth of like personal development really is what it comes down to. I'll give your audience just something to think about, because I have seen this time and time again where a person can come in and like, oh yeah, I read that, or oh yeah, I've done that. Like, check.
Yep.
That's not mindset. No. That's not growth mindedness.
Yep.
The next level for you to like, what does mindset mean? It's like, no, I'm going to go pick up that one book again, and I'm going to search for the next thing.
Yep.
And if you don't know what book to go to, try Think and Grow Rich, because it's one of those classics written over 100 years ago.
Napoleon Hill's video, I think it's the Master Key. If you just go to YouTube and search,
it's like a 2-hour deal.
Master Key,
right?
Oh man, excellent, excellent.
I have a bunch of stuff downloaded, but it's the one stuff from him that's downloaded. I can listen to it on a plane, without any service. But you're 100% right. I mean, all his stuff is good, but Think and Grow Rich, Master Key to Riches. He wrote Laws of Success before Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah,
but his stuff, it doesn't even have to be one of those. It can be 10x is better than 2x. Like whatever your thing is, okay, cool. But like, then go dig at it again. Go to the same well, go to the same hole that you think you've already got. I read Think and Grow Rich last year. I've read it every single year at least once for the last probably at least 10 years, maybe longer. Last year I read the book 8 or 9 times.
Yeah.
And it was like, I couldn't get enough. I needed the next, I wanted to hurry up and finish it so I could start it again.
Yep.
Because I was so hungry for the next slight little bit of mindset change.
Yep.
That's mindset. When you say like, well, what's going on here? So if the audience is listening right now, if anything, they don't hear anything else from my story. If you can just go deep on one thing, you're going to get something, and that's like, I hear sometimes in our marriage, not in our marriage coaching, but we bring in some marriage coaches and we've been part of their community. It's just a community just for marriage coaching, which is excellent. And I have talked with people in that environment around like, like stuff, we do that, or it's like, it's almost like the same response that it's like surface, I don't want to be here. I check.
Yep.
It's like, no,
been
dude,
there, done that.
You're missing it, man.
Yeah.
There's a reason it's on repeat.
Yeah.
It's because you haven't gotten it yet.
Yep.
Yep. Well, and to your point, just a few minutes ago, when you were talking about that guy who just takes a little bit longer, all it really was is him having to like beat his head against the wall just a few more times.
Yeah.
And then eventually he was like, oh, I'll change, or I'll adjust, or I shouldn't do it this way.
Yep. Totally.
Anyway, good stuff.
It is good stuff. For me, it wasn't Think and Grow Rich. It was The Science of Getting Rich.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, who's the author of that one?
Wadisty Waddles.
Okay.
And if you get the audiobook, I don't know who reads it, if it's Wadisty Waddles, but his voice and the way he reads, I loved it.
Okay.
So I have listened to that book probably 100 times. And when I read now, because I've listened to that so much, I read in his voice in my head.
I love it.
It's a funny thing to me.
Subconscious is a crazy thing.
It is. Yeah, it is.
That's amazing. And you're right. It doesn't have to be that book or this book. It just, it's the hunger to keep going deeper.
Yep.
That's really what it is. And when you take that lens to your business or to your marriage or to your health, like you said earlier with the diet, your kids, faith, then it's like, okay, now this is like a perpetual game that I get to keep playing.
Yep.
We have a phrase, we say winning in all areas, living the exceptional life. And a lot of people see that as like a lot of work. I kind of mentioned that earlier, like, oh my gosh, like I gotta like do all these things. It's like, no. This is just a game that I get to play all day, every day.
Yep.
And I get to keep pressing the needle or the bounds of all these things in my life, because I want the next level for all of it now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because
why not? Why I want to stay the same? I want to be no,
thanks.
Yeah.
That sounds.
But some
boring.
people think like that.
They do, but I mean, majority of the population does.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. The people who listen to this show don't. Because
hopefully not.
Yeah.
They better not.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just pretty straightforward truth.
Yeah.
On that.
So you had 7 of the. How long did it take you to get 7 locations of these?
4 years. Did that in 4 years.
Okay.
Yep. And then I ran. I kind of ran on 7 for a few years, and then I started in real estate. And that looked like, some single family, had some multifamily, some short-term rentals, some long-term.
Did you start doing that because the edibles were making money and you didn't want to pay taxes, or?
Yes. And I knew that real estate was always going to be kind of just like a longer term play. Like I wanted to invest in real estate, legacy kind of a play. I wasn't necessarily trying to do real estate at the beginning to make money, but I wanted to like put money somewhere to be able to have long term.
Yep.
And so, there's tax benefits to that, but it was really like the scalability with edibles specifically. It was like I had already kind of pushed the bounds.
Yeah.
Those holidays get like crazy, and to have so many in so many different places. I mean, I was the only one that had that many in that many places. There were other people who had maybe 8 and maybe even 9, but there was only a couple people who had more than me, and they were all like in the same city or the same metro in California.
Yep.
And so for me, or in Ohio, and so for me to have that demographic spread out, or the portfolio spread out, it was just kind of challenging. And so I knew that adding another one and another one wasn't like scale. It was just more crazy than anything. And so
what's that doing in revenue? 7 of those.
It was about 5 million.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So they were, they're all, it's like a, B-level franchise. You've got an average of 500 to $1 million on each one, kind of depending upon the metro.
What does it cost to start one?
300 to 400, depending upon whether it's new or you're buying. And well, I guess if you're buying, it depends on the revenue. So about 5 million. So I'm 29, doing about 5 million in business, and I started doing real estate.
Cool.
And I was a big Cardone fan. I mentioned that I'd spent some time at his office with Frank. That was a pretty short-lived stint because that was a business that I thought I was gonna be able to be part of for a long term, and it just wasn't that deal. But real estate came from me listening to those real estate stuff that he was doing. It's like, okay, I got to be in real estate. So and I love the creativity of real estate. Like you can just really be whoever you want to be in real estate. It's pretty interesting actually. And there's so many different niches, and I'm not like drawn to one or the other. I sold a 22 unit complex last year, made some great money on that. I held it for 5 years and revamped the property, and we did a lot of short-term rentals through that, and it was great. And I've had the single family home. I've purchased some land. I've got some properties that I've never even seen in South Florida, so it's like that you can be whoever you want to be. So I wouldn't necessarily say to do it like I've done it. I've done it very casually.
Yeah.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that, because I like to play. It's my playtime. It's my sandbox,
Yep.
So, yeah.
Sounds like my real estate.
Really?
I mean, I bought it to avoid taxes. That was about it.
Yeah.
I bought a house because my son needed a house to live in. So I'm like, well, let me just buy you one. You can rent it from me or whatever. And someday you're going to own it anyway. So who cares?
Right.
I had a CSR. I had a buddy that I wanted to move down here.
Okay.
And his best friend he had to sell his house. His best friend wanted to buy his house, so I bought his best friend's house.
Okay.
So they could go buy this guy's house so he could move down here. Just like silly stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The commercial side I think is interesting. I've not dove on that. I took a look at some of that with that 1031 that I was looking at doing last year. I looked at some commercial property, but didn't end up doing any of that. So
cool.
Yeah.
So you're buying real estate, and then like how long are you? Like, when did you start this construction company?
Yeah, so that's 3 years ago. Yeah, we can jump to that.
Did you start that before your
So
coaching?
it stemmed from flipping. So I had been in real estate. I'm like, okay, now I'm gonna flip.
Gotcha.
And so I put a team together, and we start flipping.
Was that like during COVID days?
A little bit, like a year and a half after that.
Gotcha.
Yep. And so rates were awesome. We were finding deals, and everything was good until it wasn't.
Yep.
And it was like, okay, now I didn't just randomly start a flipping company. We did start a flipping company, but I had known that even at that time, our very first boardroom session, it's like, okay, we know we want to do construction, and we'll eventually be able to do it for other people also. We're going to start doing it for ourselves, but we'll eventually do it for other people also. And so when the rates changed in 22, we were in the middle of probably like 12 different flips all at the same time. And we were like, skirt, need to put on the brakes here. And we changed directions and started immediately basically taking the same type of service, which isn't the same service at all.
Right.
That I had to learn out pretty quick is that, doing a high-end luxury remodel is way different than flipping.
Yeah.
Obviously a vacant home that homeowners don't live in, and it doesn't have to be precise, and there's no client journey, and all the things. But I'm good at those things, and so I was able to build a team around those things, and we were able to take off pretty quickly. This concept of, I used to have a guy that was on one of my sales teams because we sold advertising to contractors. This black eye of the remodeling business is like, take the 50% deposit and then like, well, we never see you again.
Yep.
And that's like, unfortunately, real.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
It is. It's crazy.
It's like the wild, wild west in some states,
Yeah.
And so we just set out to be like, okay, like we don't want to be I'm not a contractor. I own a contracting business, but I don't know how to swing a hammer.
Yeah.
You don't want me anywhere near any of that. And so it's like, okay, well, how can I take my skill sets of, hospitality from what I learned in, short-term rental, retail, which is a whole nother guest, they're not clients, they're guests, and we treat them differently, and phone etiquette and all the things. How do I take this client experience and apply it to an industry that trust is so low?
Yep.
Yep. And it doesn't have to be for construction. It can be in any trade, obviously, as you know as well. But
it could.
Just this ability to communicate and to be able to project out like somewhat accurately. It doesn't have to be perfect, but to project out accurately for a project and to be able to communicate along the way and then just do a really good job seems so simple. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Simple in theory. Yeah.
Simple in theory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's once you get it built out, it's probably not that complicated.
No.
I would imagine.
No. I mean, the internal workings, I'm sure just like your plumbing business, like when you peel it back, there's like all these little things happening all at the same time. You're like, oh my goodness, there's a lot going on here.
Yep.
But generally zoomed out, it's like, okay, like let's take really good care of this person.
Yeah.
Which really means like communicate clearly.
Yep.
Communicate often.
Yep.
Right? Build trust.
Yep.
Do what you say you're going to do.
Yep.
Make sure that the end product is like what they want and high quality.
Yep.
And when you make a mistake, because we're going to, probably on every single project, communicate that ahead of time that's just construction, but don't worry, we got you.
Yeah.
And then actually got them when it happens, like actually take care of them.
Yep.
Say, hey, we got you. And then show them that we got you. And then it usually works out pretty good. That is pretty simple,
It is pretty simple. I mean, and it's what lacks in the construction trade. And I think it's because a lot of like guys grow up in construction and then they go into a business and they don't know any better.
They don't know any different.
Yeah.
Which is obviously why it's so hard to get out of the, the tool belt or out of the truck,
You kind of lucked out in that fashion, I would say.
100%.
Like sales experience, customer service experience, go into a construction trade. And that's literally the things that the trade needs.
Yeah.
Like that's how you need to go with the business. Is okay, I got to make sales and I got happy customers.
Right.
Plumbing is secondary, or building is secondary. Remodeling is just the thing you sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the widget. I used to say a long time ago, people asked like, oh man, like why'd you choose edible arrangements? Like, do you like fruit? I was like, actually, I really don't. They're like, wait, hold on. I was kidding, but you actually don't like fruit? It's like, not really. I'll eat an occasional apple, maybe a banana every now and then, but not really. I'm kind of like a steak guy.
Yeah.
Like that's probably all about I eat a beef,
Yep.
Okay, well, great. So, why did you pick the business then? Well, because I like the game of business.
Yeah.
I didn't need to love the widget, which is, most guys that grow up in the trade or whatever trade that they grew up in or construction, it's like they just love it.
They have an extreme love for the widget.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's nothing actually wrong with that.
No.
You just have to build an affinity for the game of business.
Yes.
Not for the trade itself.
See, I lucked out because I hated the trade.
You're like, I'm trying to get out of here as soon as possible.
Dude, I mean, it was cool in the beginning because I like to learn.
Yeah.
And so learning something new was cool. But once it became just this repetitive process every single day, the same thing, I'm not learning anything new.
Right.
There's just, let's get this building done. And then we move on to the next one. And it's the same thing all over again.
Yeah.
I was tired of it. I was ready for something else.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what. I was looking for other jobs outside of plumbing.
Sure.
And then I started a business and started to learn the game of business. And I was like, oh, this is
interesting.
This is really fun. I like this. I could do this forever because there's always a new challenge.
Exactly.
And you can always go build another business or make this business bigger or make this business more profitable.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Yeah. Sometimes as business owners, I'm sure our profiles are pretty similar, but I was talking about earlier, we use the predictive index. And everything that you just described is, a certain, kind of 1 or 2 or 3 profiles.
Yeah.
And we think that everyone thinks like that.
What does the predictive index give you?
So there's 2 questions, and within 2 questions in about 7 minutes, I'll read your mail. It's wildly accurate. Bunch of science and a bunch of money that they've spent on the backside of testing all of this. So it's not just Fugazi, but basically it's going to give me a personality assessment. I'm gonna know some information about you, about your drivers. I'm gonna know how you think, how you make decisions. I'm gonna know what you like, what you don't like, generally. And so everything you just described is this super high A or high, ambitious type of person.
Yep.
But not everybody thinks like that.
No.
And there are lots of people who want to do the plumbing repetitive thing every single day.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make them any wrong or different or worse of a person. It's just a completely different profile.
Yep.
And so the part of the game of business, and especially a lot of what we talk about inside of our community, is like, okay, we can learn, that there's numbers, and I got to know my I got to know my P&L, and I got to make, decisions based on levers, and okay, now there's marketing, and okay, but there's this whole team building aspect over here. If you want real freedom in your business, you can't do it yourself.
Nope.
Right? Okay. Nope. And so let's just go start hiring people. Well, I wouldn't do that. I mean, yes, you need to go hire people.
Yep.
But like with a little bit of strategy, things like become super smooth and easy because I can find that guy. Right? You are the plumber right now, and you're like, okay, I'm trying to get out of the tool belt. Great. And it's because of these things. Great. Okay, cool.
And so you run all new hires through a predictive index test?
Yes. All new hires. You current team members, I can tell you if they're in the right seat on the bus, or if they need to be on the bus.
And so do you pre-identify like, hey, we're hiring for this position, and this is the predictive index we're looking for?
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, laser focused. Like, we're talking about like surgical type moves.
Yep.
Not just hiring anybody. But like, this is the exact person who's going to like really thrive in the role. Like they're going to find success here.
Yeah.
And not, if you go hire you, guess what that person's going to feel like after they've learned it and now it becomes repetitive. They're going to go, well, what's next?
Yep.
It's like, well, actually nothing's next. We're going to do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And he's going to pull out his hair.
Yep.
Just like you would have.
Oh yeah.
And so we don't want to hire him.
Nope.
He probably interviewed well, right?
Yep.
He probably came with a lot of energy, felt ambitious. You're like, dude, I'm going to grow this thing with this guy.
Yep.
And then 2 weeks later or 2 years later, depending upon how extreme that profile is, he's either starting his own business or off doing something new and else because there's a specific profile.
Yeah.
Okay, no big deal. So let's find the guy who actually wants to do that because he actually, like, that's success to him.
Yeah.
He likes the methodical, like, every day because he finds joy in that.
Yep.
Where guys like me and you, we're both shaking our leg over here. Like, you can't see my right leg because that's the one I shake, but I'm just like under the table going just like,
yep.
Next.
My right leg's shaking, my fingers are tapping.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like it's go time.
Yep.
And so probably on that profile, you're left of the line C by a good margin, which I am as well. And it's like, it's time to go.
Yep. I'm actually really terrible at getting anything done
because you have immense ADD. I bet.
Maybe. So I find that weird though, because my brother has ADD and I've never taken a predictive index test, but I can focus, like if I've got a task at hand,
sure,
I can focus on it like nobody's business. I will, like if I've got a big task at hand that's going to take 30 hours to do, I could literally plug into my computer,
and
put my headphones on and just, everything else turns off. I'm really good at that.
Okay.
The problem is I do that with just business in general. And then my marriage turns off.
Sure.
My relationship with my kids turn off. My friendships turn off. Everything turns off. That's probably my biggest downfall. It's like my greatest asset, biggest downfall at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that so that focus can show up on the predictive index.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess just from the way that you're like fidgeting that focus is more of a discipline.
Maybe.
Than
who knows?
But who knows? Yeah, we'll have to send it to you and we'll share the results.
Take it after this podcast.
Yeah, it only takes a couple minutes.
Yeah.
You know, from the game of business, that's what we were talking about. You know, it's like I recognized pretty quickly, especially when I got to like 3 and 4 locations, you know, and also in different cities. I bought one in Pensacola, states away. People are like, "Why did you do that?" It's like, well, why not? It's in Florida. There's a beach there, you know.
Yeah.
But their minds is like, well, how are you going to get there? It's like, well, why do I need to be there? You know, like I came down here for Valentine's Day a few months ago, but before that I hadn't been here in probably 3 years. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, how is that possible in a business? Well, there's got to be amazing people that love what they do. Yep. There has to be a system that they're following that makes it predictable and successful for them. Otherwise, it's going to feel like chaos.
Yep.
And that can be done in any business. That's the game of business.
That should be the game of business. Yes. I agree.
And then we can focus on growth and exciting things like marketing and lead generation. And,
Yeah. Yeah. Not too many people get to that point though.
Yeah.
Like most people open a business and they're still involved in the day to day and they just think that's how it is.
You know what I've learned is that person, because I used to be this person and I still am in probably some facets, they are addicted to being needed.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
Because you sitting over there in your chair and no one knowing where you even are.
Yeah. I love it.
Right. But that takes like a low ego.
Yeah.
Because nobody needs you today.
Yeah.
It's like, but I'm the founder. I started this thing. Like surely somebody needs me somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like, shh.
Yeah. Who cares?
Right. But that was developed over time or something, like how did you get there? Because the guy that you're talking about doesn't understand that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I never wanted to be the guy. I wanted freedom.
Right.
That's what I got into business for. And I always found whenever I had my business, I lost my freedom because I didn't know how to put it all together.
Sure.
Second, I learned how to put it all together and I had the right people in the right seats doing the stuff, following the system. I was like, and I could step out.
Right.
It felt wrong at first.
Sure.
And then when I got out, like after being out for a while, it was like, this is where it's at.
Yeah.
This is what it's all about. Because then I gained time freedom and money freedom. I had both.
Right.
That's when living started to happen.
Yeah.
Then I got bored.
Well,
and then I did it again.
Yeah, I was gonna say then you do it again.
Yeah.
There's a sweet spot in there that you described that, before you get bored, right?
Yeah.
Because guys like you and I can't just sit on the beach and look at the bank account grow. Like,
nope.
I need to be building something.
Yep.
There needs to be purpose. And so I think it's like the fake freedom that we all think. It's like, well, I want to sit on the beach and make money, mailbox money.
Yeah.
It's like, well, sure. But then what?
Yeah.
Once you get there, like once you've got the Lambo and once you've got the business that just prints money and you're on the beach doing nothing, then what? It's like all of your ambitions to get that isn't going to sit well on the beach.
No.
And so I've seen that time and time again too. I had that same period. I mean, I remember buying a brand new Mercedes-Benz. I'm 25 years old, thinking I'm just rolling in the dough.
Yeah.
And like 3 months later, it was just another car.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, check that box. I'm never going to do that again.
Yep.
Because it's like I need something purposeful. There's got to be something bigger at stake here.
Yep.
There's always got to be that next thing that you were talking about earlier.
Yep.
Otherwise, why are we doing it? That's why our ladies are like, whew.
Yep.
Because it's never going to end, and they know it. They're cool with it now.
Yep.
Maybe.
My wife's learned to be cool with it.
Yeah. But and at some point, Julie would be like, if it did end, she'd be like, this isn't. That something's going to break. Like, get on out there.
Yeah.
Go. You need to be building something. You need to be helping someone.
Yeah.
And not necessarily get out there, like go be active in something per se. But at some point it's about influence or impact. And that doesn't have to be exactly time.
So when did you come upon that realization? Like you own these 7 locations, you're flipping houses, you start a construction company.
Right.
Like, sounds like you're going.
Right.
At what point did you have enough time to sit back and go, I need a purpose?
Yeah.
Like, when was that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that for me, it was probably in the midst of COVID. Mm-hmm. There was a transition there. We had moved to South Florida. I had spent that time at the 10X headquarters with Grant and Frank Kern, and we came back to Kansas City. And that's basically when I launched the beginnings of what is now Gathering the Kings. Mm-hmm. And so I knew I wanted to.
Was that after the flipping and all that stuff?
No, flipping came after that.
Gotcha.
And so, flipping, construction, edible, like all that to me is just business. Like that's just the game of business.
Yep.
Not that there's not purpose there, but it's part of the bigger purpose for me of just building, But the like deeper purpose of me, like Chaz Wolf, it's like I know that I'm designed and made specifically to put kings and queens around a table, and for that conversation just to elevate lives. Of course, businesses, right? Because we're all entrepreneurs, but there will never be I mean, never is kind of a strong word, but I think I'll probably do this until the day I die. You know, like that's what I feel like I'm made for.
Yeah. Retirement sounds like stupid.
Now it's like, if I can have conversations like this, if I can organize, whether it's events or just tables, like that's really all it is. I organize space so that people, when they sit down at the table, that conversation just is like, super interesting. And when they walk away, they do something with it and it changes their business or their marriage or their faith or whatever. It's just like that right there to me is impact. Now, whether those people are clients of mine or not, it doesn't really matter to me. But that's the work or the building that I think I'll do forever.
Yeah.
You know, do you feel the same?
Yes, but slightly different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How so?
So it's fun. You just said that's the building. You know, it took me a little bit to figure that out because I had a business. It was in Alaska. I was living in Florida. We would go to the beach. I'd be miserable. And I'd be like, let's go. And then my wife eventually was like, you got to do something else because you're going to go crazy.
Yeah.
And so it took me a bit. I had to take that time to actually think about, okay, what does Jared like? What makes Jared, like, what brings Jared joy?
Yeah.
And kind of like you, I believe I was created for a purpose. And I kind of think we're all created for the same purpose to an extent. But for me, it was, okay, I love building. Like when I was a kid, I built stuff. I was taking my alarm clocks apart and rebuilding them. I was working on my bikes. I was combining bikes, building tree forts. And then when I got into business and I could build a business, I was like, this is really fun. And then the impact came from building the business. And when I combined the two, the building with the impact, and the impact was just like, I watched my general manager like make a really good income. He went from low income to high income. He called me one day and told me I have $100K in my bank account. And I was like, dude, that's like cooler than the money that's in my bank account right now.
Yeah.
And then just watching like everybody who worked for me, because we built this thing, they got to make more money. They got to go buy homes. They got to go buy cool cars. That was the coolest.
Yeah.
So to me, that's like, I view it, maybe not at the table.
Sure.
That's not really my thing a whole bunch.
Yeah.
I enjoy these conversations.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like at work, building the business,
the team,
and then bringing the people in with me.
Yep.
Because there's good people out there that don't have our personalities.
Yeah, exactly.
That still will come to work and work hard and be very successful.
Yeah.
And it's cool to build that thing for them to take part in.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That you building something big enough
Yeah.
to be able to house their ambitions inside of it.
Yep.
You know, team members, you can do that with your children.
Oh yeah.
You know, of course, with other businesses, if you're building a community, but it's like that. And now it becomes like a mantle of like, oh, we've got to go bigger.
Yeah.
It has to be bigger.
And that's what I like about it. It's forced me to be like, okay, we got to think way bigger.
Yeah.
Like way more long-term. We got to make way bigger moves. We got to go way bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun.
The opportunity that, and a lot of times you're not even going to be able to see the impact. You know, you'll see some of it, but
right.
Whether it's with your team members or people that are watching, your YouTube or whatever, but there's like tons of that. And so it's like the days that it's tough, whether you have a conversation like this or it's just a tough day, good day, bad day, whatever. It's like that impact, sometimes whether you don't even know it to be exact, it's like, I know that it's there.
Yeah.
From people listening or, you're referencing a conversation with your GM, like all of that's super impactful.
Yeah. The impact that just my social media has had or my school group has had, that's been like I don't know, I'll call it a happy accident. Like I'll go to a conference somewhere and I'll get people coming up to me and saying thank you. And I'm like, what did I do? And all I did was come on here and, say my thoughts and what I think and share my experiences. And and it's cool. Yeah. It's fun.
I mean, it's what led me to the table here. I think I told you, you popped up in my For You on TikTok, probably maybe a year ago, maybe not quite. And there was some pricing stuff. And I had a sales guy at the time who was not necessarily struggling with pricing, but just always kind of butting up against like, he's the one on the ground, like selling the stuff and wondering if we're too high priced. And so I'm like, hey, take a look at this guy. Take a look at this guy. And that's different. It's plumbing, but just listen to the mindset. Listen to the mindset.
Yeah.
So you've impacted people in my business. So I thank you for that.
That's funny. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's what it's about?
Yeah.
When you think about it at the end of the day, it's like, this is what we're made for.
Yeah.
You know?
So tell me more about your construction business, because you're flipping homes and you're like, okay, we're going to do construction.
Yeah.
What's that like?
Yeah. And so we had obviously done full house renovations. And so we were like, okay, how do we
did you have your own crew at that point doing those?
We had some subs.
Gotcha.
And so that we still run the same model. We've got sub crews. We've got in-house project managers and team members, but
gotcha.
The general labor is all done by subs. And I think the process there, for us, is that we already had a couple of crews that we were working with. We learned pretty quickly that those crews aren't the same crews that you do luxury high-end remodels with.
Yep.
And so there was some bumpiness in the road there, but we kind of figured out pretty quickly that bathrooms are like what we do really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a master bath that just they've been saving up and they want it to be like their oasis, and so we use some of that language around in our marketing and stuff. But that's like our sweet spot. We've also done some incredible basements, some cool gathering places, and of course bars and wine deals and stuff that should be probably in magazines at some point. And then of course with some additions, we've done some commercial projects. We're building out some tenant build outs right now.
Cool.
So pretty wide gamut, but the general construction process, what we realized, whether it was, in consideration, the bathroom's kind of like our small project now, all the way up to, a big commercial, is that there's lots of steps.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of confusion.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of miscommunication and a lot of mistrust.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've just tried to, systemize the client experience a lot through communication, a lot through automation, but that human touch experience of like, how do we take human communication and trust to the next level and just happen to be a construction company?
Yeah. So I want to know more because I've dealt with lots of remodel contractors.
Yeah.
And they're always a pain in the butt. So like it's high end, like you're in high end homes, you said.
Yep. So
how are you getting in high end homes specifically? Is it just because your pricing's on another level, your quality is on another level? What gets you in there?
Well, I think that when you asked that question, I went to this is where our leads take us.
Mm-hmm.
But that isn't exactly true. I think that we've priced ourselves out of many opportunities and somewhat on purpose, and so I think that the type of person, the type of homeowner or business owner, if we're doing a commercial project, the type of person that appreciates and is willing to pay for that client experience, right?
Yep.
Where they've either had a bad experience before,
Yep.
They've paid that contractor and it was just a terrible scenario. He didn't show up when he said he was going to, took the money, whatever the bad story is, all the way to they've never used anybody before, but they themselves are, we just finished a project for a guy that's in construction. He's got a different type of construction business. And so he wasn't like watching us. He wasn't like a difficult client at all, but he was like, man, this is well-oiled machine. Like you guys communicated up front. Your sales process was different. The whole thing, it was just like, well done, guys. Like there was a couple, I would want to know. So here's a couple things, but thank you for the feedback, but generally he was like, well done, And so for another guy in construction to be able to say that,
that's cool.
That's what it's about for us. It's that basically this is the client journey, right? If we're talking business tactics, we're not necessarily talking like how to get a lead or how to sell the lead. There are components of the client journey that go into that. Like when we like our lead to speed, what we're saying on the phone is different than probably everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
The videos that we send before we even go out for the first estimate, describing, like here's what to think about when hiring a contractor, like whether you decide to hire us or not. Here are some things that you should be thinking about. Me telling a story about me hiring a contractor back in the day and how I thought it was going to be 30 grand because I went with the cheaper guy.
Yep.
And it ended up costing me 90 grand.
Yep.
And if I had just gone with the more expensive guy for 55,
it
would have been done right the first time.
Yep.
Because most people don't think like that. Now I can just tell a story,
And did you learn kind of how to put that stuff together from like Frank Kern?
All the marketing stuff that I'd done. And it wasn't just those days, but yes, all the marketing that I learned in business.
It sounds similar to like high ticket sales coaching.
Exactly.
That I've taken.
Yep. There's a pre-frame. that has to happen. And contractors don't think in pre-frame. They're like, wait, hold on, what's a pre-frame?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you what a pre-frame is. I want to handle all their objections before the objection even comes.
Yep.
Right. When I used to sell, and maybe this is a good transition to be able to talk about the lead company I used to sell for, but I do the same thing with contractors. Because if I can get you, first off, to think about the end result in realness.
Yeah.
Like if I can actually tell you what it's going to be like, it eliminates a lot of the questions because I've answered all of them already.
Yeah.
By authenticity.
Yep.
And actually even lowballing some of the results because we were selling marketing. So it's like if I can lowball, if I can talk to you in a manner that you're just instantly drawn to me, which is a whole nother thing around magnetism and enthusiasm, and we're back into the mindset category.
Yep.
But if I can be unique, get your attention, and then the tactics of what I'm saying is actually I'm just pre-framing the whole time. So that way, like I used to teach people, by the time the presentation comes, it's either yes or no. There's no objections. What are you talking about? I don't need objection handling.
Yep.
I don't want to wrestle you down. That's not my style at all.
Yep.
We either know we're going to do business together or we know that we're not. And either way is fine with me.
Yeah. So
like I was just saying with that video of going, okay, it's a video of me saying, hey, I'm Chaz. I'm one of the founders here at King's Collective. We loved it. Thank you for taking a look at, or thank you for allowing us to take a look at your project. Here are some things that you should be considering when you're hiring a contractor, whether we're the right fit or not. We don't know. We don't even know if this project is right for us yet.
Yeah.
But here are some things that you should be thinking about. And then the next video down, you're probably going to get a low bid, and you're going to get a mid bid, and you're going to get a high bid. And let me tell you about a story about the low bid, high bid scenario that I dealt with years ago, and how it cost me X. And so, and then being honest about how we're probably going to be one of the higher bids, if not the high bid, and we're okay with that. And here's why.
Yep.
Because we've vetted our subs, we have a long-term relationship, we provide a warranty, like all these things that you're not going to have to deal with.
Yep.
The fact that we carry insurance, like all these things that the low bid, he doesn't have any of these things. And that's why he can do it for you. So have your own risk,
Yeah.
And the guy that wants the cheaper guy, that's not our client anyway.
No.
It's not our client anyway.
And then you're just avoiding it by being upfront and honest.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you're avoiding it, but then you're going to get yourself into a situation that you don't actually want.
Yeah.
And they don't want either because they're going to nitpick you to death.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, this was terrible. I'm actually losing money on this project now.
Yep.
It's like, no, I don't know. No, this is the price. And if it doesn't meet, it doesn't mean that we don't wiggle a little bit, but generally speaking, it's like, this is the price. Because clients that we want to work with, again, there is a percentage of people. I have now become one of these people because I appreciate the process. Right?
Yep.
Who I've appreciated the ability to say, hey, if I can pay for this, it might cost me a little bit extra, but I know that it's going to be smooth, that I'm going to be communicated with, that I'm going to be dealing with a professional.
Yep.
All of those things. It's going to save me time.
Yep.
Right? All of these things. Okay, cool. Like I'm okay with that. In fact, I'm more than happy to do so. In fact, can I pay a little bit more to make sure that I'm even at the top of that list?
Yeah.
There is a subset of people who want that. And I can build an entire business serving those people.
Yep. Hands down.
Right?
I mean, that's basically what we do in home service. Same thing. We just choose our customers.
Right.
The dollar amounts are probably a lot lower, but even then, like my whole plumbing and heating business was built on basically doing it right the first time. And people would say, like, if you go to Fairbanks, Alaska, and you say, hey, have you ever heard of Prospector Plumbing and Heating? They go, yeah, those guys are expensive.
Yeah.
But they show up, they answer the phone, and they do it right the first time.
Yep.
That's what we were known for.
Yep.
And so people would call us just because they knew we would answer the phone, they knew we'd show up, and they knew we'd get their problem fixed without us having to come back and do it again.
Yeah.
And that we pulled more money out of that town than I think anybody ever thought was possible just playing that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you provided a level of service that they longed for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was a big hole in the market at that point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I love to hear is when my sales guy says, I'm working on this deal. It's a hot lead. The response was, you guys are a little higher than I thought we were going to have to go. But man, your entire process has been so good, so unique.
Yep.
And so in their mind, they're going, okay, wow, I was thinking about spending, $25,000 on this bathroom.
Yep.
These guys are 40.
Yep.
That's like a lot more than I was anticipating. But like in comparison, I got the $18,000 bid. That took him 2 weeks to even get back to me. I had to call him 3 times.
Yep.
He showed up and I wasn't sure if he'd had a shower in a couple days.
Yep.
Then I got the $30K bid, which is a little over my, what I was thinking, but he wasn't professional either.
Nope.
In fact, he was kind of just the same as that guy, but just he got it to me a little faster.
Yep.
And then you have this other guy over here. He's 40, but they like didn't just show up on time.
Yep.
Of course, they showed up on time, but there was, again, videos ahead of time. I knew who I was meeting with. The gal that answered the call the very first time, and the guy that came in to estimate, like the way that they followed up. He came back the next day with the most detailed bathroom remodel estimate that I have ever seen. These guys they just gave me a number.
Yep.
We gave you the most detailed line by line item. We provided some drawings and some creativity all in the same, and we did it in 2 days or whatever the process.
Probably showed up in a nice truck.
Yes.
Uniformed. Yep.
And they're like, okay, 40 was a little bit more than I was thinking, but man, who do I want to go with?
Yeah.
I have to go with them.
So, and how much of that gets financed?
That's a good question. We actually have not run into a lot of it up until recently, which is in kind of paying attention to, the market, I would say that probably less than 10% before recently. And then now it's like, maybe 30, 40% they're going to get a HELOC or they're going to go get a personal loan.
Yeah.
Most of it before was, hey, we've been saving. We've been wanting to do this project.
Mm-hmm.
We've got these funds set aside. Some people just with cash, time to do the bathroom now. They hadn't been saving about it. They just have the cash,
So if they come to you and they say, hey, I've got these funds set aside, let's just say 20 grand.
Yeah.
And do you go in and specifically build them an option that's within their budget? Or do you find out what they want and build that option?
Yeah, find out what they want and then build out what they want. Most people, obviously, that like what they want and what they have money for are very two different things.
Yes.
And so a lot of times people know, like, okay, I've got 20 grand or I've got 40 grand, but I really have no idea what this is going to be. And so when you come back with 40, 60, 80, 100, they're like, okay, it's definitely more than I thought, but I kind of knew it.
Yeah.
Then there's the subset of people that are like zero chance that's happening. This is all the money that I have. And you're like, okay, cool. Like, this is what you wanted. And so of this picture, what can you live without?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to do this for this cost, right? So like, let's pick and choose here. Maybe you don't need the water fountain in your bathroom.
Yep.
Like we had one customer, it's like, I don't know if you realize
how much is this cost?
How much is this going to cost here?
Yep.
Maybe we can get away from the water fountain in the shower because the shower is kind of a water fountain anyway. But okay, fine. And so then we can build it a little bit more specific around what they've got. Typically, what we find happen is that there's a middle ground. Like everybody has like the picture perfect. This is what it is, and they're like, okay, maybe I don't need all of that. Okay, fine, no big deal. But I only had money for this, and so we're going to meet somewhere in the middle. Generally speaking, that's probably what I would say most people end up doing.
Gotcha.
A little bit more than they had planned, but they don't quite get everything that they're looking for.
And are you building those options like after the fact or upfront for them?
Yeah, I would say that
it's so line by line that you can just kind of pop them together. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We try to be really, really detailed for that reason, but also just because it's such a shock factor. Most general contractors, bathroom addition, whatever, they show up and they're like, okay, actually, here's what most people do. If they show up, they're like, yeah, we're going to be, 40 to 50,000.
Yeah.
And they're like, when do you want to get started? No contract, just a general ballpark. And so when you get actually rolling into it, then you're like halfway through the project and you realize it's actually going to be 80.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that to my clients either.
No.
Now, granted, there's always things along the way that you might want to add or that things are a little bit wiggly, but it is an estimate, but we try to get things pretty close, and in a detailed way because it's for the awe factor of like, holy smokes, not only were you the most professional and the process was just incredible, you did it the fastest and it was the most detailed. Like I can totally tell this was like professionally done.
Yeah.
It's just such a small thing that gives so much value.
Yeah.
Right. And we know this now, having other types of businesses, but it's like all I'm really trying to do is put things on the table that look extremely valuable, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so for edible arrangements, for example, you can buy right now 8 pieces of banana dipped in, half of it's dipped in white chocolate, the other half is dipped in dark chocolate, and you can add that to your arrangement for $16.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take one banana and I'm going to cut it into 4 pieces. I'm going to take one more banana and cut it into 4 pieces. Those 2 bananas cost me what? 25 cents?
Yeah.
30 cents?
Yep.
The chocolate maybe cost me 50 cents. But what looks like a double dipped process, and it is, on a unique piece of fruit that you've probably never tasted dipped in chocolate,
right?
You're like, oh, it's only $16. And so I've taken
and it's for my mom.
And it's for your mom.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
Right? Now, granted, there's all kinds of other expenses that go into making that, but
right.
Just cost analysis. It's like, okay, I've taken this little bit of thing and the perceived value is so much more.
Yep.
Right. And so going back to the estimates, like, it's not like we're just trying to like overwhelm them with information. What we're trying to do is it's the shock value of like, again, I'm playing the game of comparison, right? Yep. I know you're going to get 2 other bids on your bathroom.
Yeah.
Like this is what's going to happen.
It's a given.
We show up typically the first because we're always the fastest and we're the most professional. And so typically what happens is that, people are going to say, hey, cool. Like I've got 2 other guys coming out. Hey, no problem at all. Good.
Yep.
Because I already know you don't realize it yet. I already know I've beat them.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you engage with those 2, the one never will end up showing up and whatever. The one that does show up is like, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't hire that guy. I've already won.
Yep.
You
have. So then so I had a really good question. It just my mind just totally went blank.
It'll come back.
It will. It'll come back like right at the wrong moment. But I remember before you were talking about your construction business. Oh, I wanted to keep going with your story because you are flipping houses. You go to construction. How long did it take you to build this thing? Like tell me about that.
Yeah. So fall of 22, we decided to stop flipping.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we start immediately.
And so who's we at this point?
So I started with 2 partners.
Uh-huh.
Basically a profile that's a little bit more patient, has a little bit of a marketing experience and kind of like CRM, like nerd behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And then my other partner is, extroverted, not really good at sales because he didn't have any sales experience, but I knew I could train him.
Yep.
He has the right profile.
What's that partnership look like?
As far as like percentages?
Yeah.
33, 33, 34. Me 34.
Okay.
And on purpose.
Never had any problems?
Have never had any problems, mostly because I understand roles and I understand like the direction of. And on top of that, because I put it together and I've got the say so, it kind of comes down to whether Chaz is okay with it or not.
Okay.
And I was upfront about that.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm super collaborative in this environment. I'm going to be super collaborative in this environment, but at the end of the day, if I don't like it, we're not doing it.
Yep.
And so that coming in.
Yep.
I'm the only one in this point. They had other businesses, but not at the scale.
Is that like written in an agreement?
Yeah. It's in our operating agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not those exact terms, but basically, like at the end of the day, if it comes down to something, it's going to be Chaz's decision.
Okay.
And so, you asked a question before that. What was that?
Just what it looks like.
Oh, how we had transitioned.
Yeah.
And so we immediately start taking leads for remodeling,
which you had a history of.
Yes.
Yeah. So when was that? Because we talked about that beforehand.
Yeah. So I left that company when I started Edible.
Gotcha.
Basically.
Who was it through?
Through Home Advisor and Angie.
Gotcha.
And so just a couple of pieces there. So they're like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So I sold for Home Advisor and for Angie. I was one of the few reps during that transition where I sold both.
Gotcha.
I was a sales manager as well as a sales rep. At one point, I don't remember the exact year, but I was the top salesperson in the entire organization.
How do you get into that kind of gig?
I was just applying for sales jobs.
That's
I'm
it?
21 years old in Kansas City. It was Service Magic at that time.
Gotcha.
And then it turned into Home Advisor, and then Home Advisor bought Angie, and they merged. And so yeah, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of phone calls to contractors selling advertising before I ever look. I would hang up the phone going, if that guy can run even the remnants of a business, I am going to crush it one day.
Yep.
Because you know the Joe, like 9 out of 10 business aren't run by business owners.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
And so all that to say, I understood lead generation. I understood marketing. I understood several pieces of business. I had been like, reading business books and stuff like that. I was preparing, if you will.
Yeah.
And so, and for anyone listening right now who's like, oh, Angie and Home Advisor, fine. Your sales process probably sucks. It works for us because our sales process is awesome. And for anybody that I've ever talked to that it didn't work, it is either a really unique situation or your sales process just wasn't on it.
Okay.
And that's different from like a referral or even like a paper lead click, because that's a different type of lead.
Yeah.
So we got to put third-party leads over here in their own category, and you got to be really on it and really aggressive and really like.
Where do people make the mistake when they're dealing with that kind of lead?
Okay, lots of mistakes. One, they take it themselves. So they're on the job site and their phone's ringing and they don't hear it.
Yeah.
Right. So speed to lead is by far the greatest lever.
Yep.
Phone rings. The gal in our office that takes those calls like knows that like literally I don't care what you're doing.
Yep.
You answer that call and or if it's just a notification, then we're immediately calling that person.
Yep.
And not just once.
Yep.
Right. And so there has to be like a deep hunger for connecting with that homeowner.
Yep.
On top of that, I also know the back end too. So Home Advisor actually only sells the information to 3 or 4 other people. Like that's legit.
Okay.
And as a customer, I've experienced that as well. The problem is that homeowner doesn't just stop with the one, like they oftentimes don't even realize what they're doing, right? They fill out the information, they hit click, and then they go over to Google or then they go over to Thumbtack. And so they've got all these other people also. So when you show up and you're like, well, there was like 8 people there. Well, first off, I've never seen that happen.
Yep.
Because 8 people don't even know how to respond to the lead.
Right. Yeah.
Let alone, okay, maybe there were 8 people in the mix. But guess what? That's kind of just business.
Where's Angie and Leads getting these leads?
I mean, they're paying Google and they've got pages and all the SEO and SEM that you can do on your own.
Yep.
They're just bigger, better players.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so for you to have your own Google, it doesn't mean that you're competing with yourself, because the homeowners that are going to Home Advisor and Angie probably aren't coming to you. So there's not a huge overlap there, but I'm sure there would be at some point if you're running a pretty large business.
Actually, I ran into that in Alaska.
Okay. Yeah. So super small market.
Super small market.
Yep.
Paying for pay-per-click.
Yep.
And I was running up Angie Leads cost pay-per-click.
And you were seeing the lead come in the same?
Yep.
Yeah. And we see that every now and then, but super small market, or I was going to say the other would just be you're just a giant company. Everybody already knows you.
Yeah.
But most of those companies use Home Advisor and Angie. Like all the big companies, because they're lead hungry.
Yeah.
And it's just another lead to them. Yeah. They don't care. They know that it'll work. They know that eventually they're going to call that person until they buy.
Yep.
And that's just how it works. So you got to be like super on it, lead to speed. And so I can give you a quick little cadence. Like you're going to call it right away. If they don't answer, we're literally hanging up and calling it right away again. Like a double dial.
Double dial. Yeah.
Double dial.
Which most like plumbers or electricians would think was terrible.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean? Like, well, first off, they don't want that for themselves. And it's like, well, first off, you have to realize on the other end that the homeowner isn't the 3 or 4 people that Home Advisor gives that lead to. 2 or 3 of them aren't going to call.
Right.
At least not right away. So of the 4, let's just say 1 doesn't even know he got a lead and will never, ever call it ever.
Yep.
1 will call it a week or 2 later, potentially.
Yep.
And then of the 2 that are left, 1 will call maybe that day or the next day, and then you're going to get the guy that calls right away.
Yep.
That's generally going to be how he does. So if you can just be lead to speed, you'll be probably the only person that person's talking to. Generally speaking, when that lead comes in, if we get them on the phone, we're booking an appointment immediately.
Gotcha.
Now, granted, for remodeling, they're going to book 2 or 3 appointments, and so we're okay with that. But plumbing service, it's that lead to speed is going to be even more important, right? Because as soon as they book with you, they're done.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I've used Home Advisor as a home owner before, but if I'm going to go to Google right now and get a plumber, I'm going to go to Google, go to Pensacola. Okay, fine. Top 1, I'm going to call them, and they don't answer. Fine. What am I going to do?
Go to the next one.
Go to the next one.
Yep.
They don't answer. Go to the next one. They answer, and they can't come out until tomorrow. Next one.
Yep.
Okay, you can come out in an hour? Perfect. And then what do? I stop calling.
Yep. So what do you say to people that say that like Angie leads and Home Advisor leads are poor quality?
I would generally say that your sales process sucks.
Yeah.
Like, big statement. I recognize that.
Yep.
But more than likely, I can come in and I can ask you just a couple of questions about your sales process, and you won't even be able to answer them, would be my guess.
Yep.
And so,
I bet most of them don't even have a sales process.
Yeah, they're like, sales process, what do you mean?
Yeah, what is that?
Right? So take the phone out of your pocket, not literally, but like have it go to someone else in your office.
Yeah.
Make sure that is like a well-communicated expectation and SOP of the cadence. So you call right away. If you don't get an answer, call them 15 minutes later. If you don't answer, call them an hour later. If they don't answer, call them at the end of the day. Shoot them a text, shoot them an email.
Yep.
They don't answer, call them again the next day. Like, you just paid for this.
Yep.
This is gold.
Yep.
You got to be on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't have a sales process, then you've got to build one of those out, and then you got to put somebody in it who can follow that for the lead service. That goes for Thumbtack or any of them. Really, any sort of lead service whatsoever, but specifically and especially with those types of leads.
Yeah.
Even more so for service, right? Because we're talking about $179 possibility.
Yep.
Maybe it's more, but it's not an $80,000 remodel that's on the other end.
It should be. If anybody listening to this is going out for $179, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should be more. Yeah.
But that lead to speed in that scenario is going to be even more important because, again, what do I stop doing when I get the appointment booked?
Yeah.
I stop searching for a solution because I have one now because, Jared's coming out.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got leads coming in that you can jump on real fast because you know how Angie's Leads and Home Advisor works.
Yep. So we transition right over. We start taking leads.
That gets you calls fast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And so we just start immediately going out. I mean, we already know how to generally estimate because we've been doing it for our own houses. It's completely different for residential high-end luxury. We realized that pretty quickly. We were shorting ourselves almost from the get-go, but we fixed that. But it was just, okay, repetition. And of course, the first deal, then the second deal, and we learn through those and make a bunch of mistakes. And, we had some great projects. We had some not great projects, but generally speaking, you're learning.
You didn't quit.
And you
just kept getting better.
Yeah. And that's been the game for the last 3 years.
Yep.
So yes, we've gotten bigger. Yes, we've hired more people. The process has just gotten more smooth, better. I would definitely put us in the category of like, we know how to do marketing and sales. Okay, fine. But then what about the back end, right? Mm-hmm. And we can talk about fulfillment in any business, especially in the coaching business like that. Most people just sell you a high ticket thing and then
see ya.
Then there's nothing.
Yeah.
Like you come in and you're like all excited and you're like, wait, I paid for this?
Yeah.
Construction, kind of the same thing, but it's like, like what did I pay for? Well, I paid for a half done thing or you left or whatever. All that's like systems and people.
Yep.
And so if I can get clear systems, SOPs, if I can get good people, the right people in the right roles, good culture fits, and I'm kind of giving several steps here, but that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And so if I had to like zoom out a little bit, I would say that first year was sell and let's figure it out. And we sold, and I mean, we had 7 figures in 7 months, but it was like clunky and a mess. Mm-hmm. And
was it profitable at all?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Did it lose money?
Yes.
Yeah.
And for me, I was okay with that because it was a tax thing because I was making money in other places.
Yeah.
And so that's okay. And I expected that in year 1, actually.
Yep.
In year 2, it was really about, okay, we've created not a mess, but a mess. We went out and we like lit the thing on fire. Cool. We know how to get leads. We know how to sell jobs. We know how to do jobs, but let's just make it better.
Yeah.
And so year 2 is really cleaning up operations, making sure that we really vetted our subs, changing out we had already made that transition away from all of our flipping crews and really found really great subs that we would, they are our team.
Are they more expensive?
100%. Yeah. And for us, that's okay because we know we've got it priced in accordingly. Yeah. And it's also so much easier for us knowing that like on the back end, they're going to be super happy. Yeah. Like I just got a message right before I came in here that we finished up a big addition and the 5-star review that came with it, on the spot, they did the final walkthrough. She gave it a 5-star review. And in the review, it was like, I've worked with so many contractors and I can tell you that this one was absolutely different. And that's like our slogan, like remodel with kings. The experience is different.
Yeah.
And it's
that's
like,
cool.
That's how it needs to be. Like at the end, it needs to be, maybe it doesn't mean that the process was perfect. You know, it doesn't mean that there weren't bumps in the way. It's construction.
Yeah.
In fact, we tell them on the front end, it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And yes, we have a stress-free process and we're professionals. We got you. But like, there's going to be some things along the way that maybe don't go exactly how you or I think that they're going to go, but that's okay.
Yep.
We're going to still be here.
Yep.
And we'll navigate through that at that time, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway.
So year one,
Yep.
you did hit 7 figures.
Yep.
Or in 7 months.
Yep.
What did year 2 look like?
Year 2 was, we were right about 2 million actually, but it was a profitable 2.
Cool.
Let me say that reverse. We got it to a place where break even is probably a better analysis actually.
Yeah.
But it was making up from all the previous investments of learning.
Right.
And so it by itself, it was probably profitable if I analyzed it, if I annexed it off.
Right.
But we were still cleaning up a bunch of mess. So using funds in the business to create process, hire good people from all the things that we had created before.
Right.
You know. And so now we're in year 3, like multiple months into year 3, and things are like, it's like, oh, you know.
So this is year 3 for you.
That we're in
That's
year
cool.
3. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
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 You feel like you've got your mess cleaned up?
100%.
And so now what?
Now it's like, we've got, growth on our minds, but also we're starting to do some commercial projects, which is kind of like the new learning, again.
Yep.
But it gives us the ability to just scale faster, with commercial. Also, and it doesn't mean that we want to just do commercial. We've got an affinity for home service. And so just being able to kind of like have a commercial division, if you will. Mm-hmm. On the residential side, we were talking about this earlier before we got on the pod, but it's like, I know that I'll continue to buy businesses. And so, we can buy a framing company or a painting company, a concrete company, like all these things that we're going to use anyway.
I vote painting.
What's that?
I vote painting.
You vote painting?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I agree that there are some great ways to win in painting.
I think the hard part would be employees.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Painting is like its own. I got a couple painters in our community, and it's like its own. I mean, I think every trade probably thinks that,
Yeah. I think painting is its own.
I think it is.
I would agree with you on that one.
I think it is. When we built our house, it was like, man, they were on it, but then like it was different than all the other crews.
Yep.
Yep. They were.
They're a different kind of breed.
Yeah.
You got you got to be a different breed to huff in paint fumes all day.
Yeah.
And not go do something else.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. That's probably a really great synopsis of that.
So what do you think you'll do this year in revenue for your contracting, your remodel?
Yeah, it depends on a couple of big commercial projects, but we will probably be 3 to 5 million is the target.
Cool.
We'll for sure be at 3, but it'll be dependent upon whether some other bigger stuff that we're working on comes through.
What does that look like employee wise?
Yeah, good question. So we sit at 1, 2. We're a team of 6 internally, and then we have, probably hundreds through the sub crews.
Gotcha. So on your P&L, like your COGS are a good portion of the money.
Yeah, this is a big.
Your overhead's probably small compared to your COGS.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So like
it's a pretty small team.
What kind of gross margins do you need to hit?
Yeah, and so this is one of the levers that we've been really working on. And so before I had any attention on this metric, we were just doing, and then I was retroactively tracking, right?
Yeah.
And we were kind of landing at like 62, 63%, and so like a 38% gross profit. And I just couldn't make sense of it. It just was not working, not fast enough. And so basically I just created a 50-50 rule, and that was easy for my ops team and the sales team to understand. And so it was like, okay, we sell a $100,000 project. We've got $50,000 to spend on the COGS, and then we've got the remaining portion of it for profit, overhead, and I guess the other overhead pieces, but our nut, office, team.
So it's not too, like, it's pretty similar to like service.
Yeah.
Like our biggest expense is labor and then materials.
Right.
But, in the beginning stages of a plumbing business, you got to be like 70-80% gross. At scale, at 5 million ish, you're probably 55,
right?
And you're good.
Yeah,
yeah,
yep.
But our biggest expense is probably in our overhead is marketing.
Yeah,
it's probably the biggest one there.
Yeah, and I would. Yeah, I mean that's. Yeah, I mean we're probably from like a percentage perspective, we're 9 to 11%.
Yeah,
right in there as far as marketing goes. But on a $3-4 million business, I mean it's obviously quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a lot of cash.
Most people when they hear 9 to 11, they're like, oh, that's no big deal. But then when you start thinking about what do you need to spend in order to get the opportunities, in order to close,
because you need a lot more opportunities,
right,
to get in those good houses, and get the high dollar projects, and then you don't have a mechanism to retain those customers, right?
Right.
Yeah.
There's no second service. I mean, we have some clients that call us back for their next bathroom,
right? But
that's not like tomorrow,
right?
Not typically.
Yeah.
Of course, some people refer us to their neighbors, but it's like that doesn't, like if the neighbor's not looking for a remodel, then they can love us all they want, but so there's some limitations there.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes back to just lead service in general and knowing whether it's Angie or Thumbtack, any of them. But if you just know the numbers, like I just remember talking to contractors and, okay, let's just break down 10 leads. They're all $100. For plumbing service, obviously it wouldn't be that high, but let's just say they're $100 and
they're way more in some areas.
In some areas. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
For easy math, let's use 100.
Sure.
And let's say, you contact 6 or 7. You don't even get a hold of 2 or 3 of them.
Right.
Right? Okay, fine. You contact 6 or 7. Out of the 6 or 7, you're not going to bid all of those. Let's say you only bid 3 or 4.
Yep.
And let's say you only win 1 or 2.
Yep.
Well, that math works for us every time.
Yep.
But I told you before, we don't even close 1 out of 10.
Right.
Because we're high end, right? If we're going to close 1 out of every 30, let's say. Okay, so again, now we're 30. So now we're $3,000.
Yep.
It's probably higher than that. Like on a $100,000 project or on a $50,000 project, what am I willing to spend? I'm willing to spend, let's just say 10% of that on marketing. That's how you have to reverse engineer the math.
Yeah.
If I'm going to have and most people, even when I was, working at Home Advisor, I would try to help people understand this for business. It's like, oh, well, then that takes away from my profit. No. You should have a 10% marketing line item in there.
Yeah.
You should know that it's going to cost you money to get this job. Okay, so fine. So if it takes me on a $50,000 remodel, it's going to cost me $5,000 to land that job.
Yep.
Great. Well, over here, that's 50 leads at $100 a pop.
Yep.
And so I'm not angry at the one that didn't call me back or the one that only wanted flooring.
Yep. And
it wasn't really a bathroom lead. I'm not wasting any time calling Angie going, this is a bunk lead or da-da-da. We'll submit for the credit, but like if we get it, don't, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because I know that on a project like this, here's my budget.
Yep.
It's going to give me 50 leads. I'm going to close 1 of them.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know.
The mistake in the service world that people make is they don't think about lifetime value.
Oh yeah.
So that like you get that customer, and if you do a really good job selling them a membership, they're going to use you probably for 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
That's about the average that people stay in their homes. And so you might pay $200 to get this customer and go to their house and only make 500.
Right.
And it sounds like bad math at the beginning, but you stretch that out over 5 years.
Right.
And it turns into really good math. You can actually outspend all your competitors to get leads and still have a really successful business.
Yeah.
But the key is that retention. Whereas like year 1, you're buying customers. That's all you're doing. You can't make money year 1, basically.
Yep.
Year 2, you get all these return customers, and you can literally spend almost the same amount and double your business just because you've retained customers at that point.
Yeah.
Marketing budget gets cut in half, is percentage wise.
Right.
And you can continue to do that.
Yep.
Like plumbing business in Alaska, I think year 1 we spent $400K on marketing.
Yeah.
Year 2, $400K on marketing.
Right.
Year 3, $400K on marketing. But we went from me in the truck producing $800K in revenue to $2.8 million to $4.8 million to $5.2 million to last year's $6 million.
Yeah.
Just same marketing budget.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said something that's super interesting that the audience might find valuable is that you said the lifetime value of the customer.
Yeah.
And most people don't make decisions off of data, right? Because they're not tracking.
Right.
And so first off, you have to know, okay, so in this 5 to 7 year period, how many times are they going to call me? What's the average ticket?
Right.
Okay, so for your business for 5 to 7 years in a plumbing business, how many times are they going to call?
5 to 7 times.
So once a year, roughly.
Yeah.
Okay. And on average, what's that ticket?
Oh, so if you're only plumbing, it's probably every other year would be my guess.
Okay.
Average ticket, that varies per business.
Sure.
But if you're doing really good, it's $2,500.
Okay.
Average opportunity would be $1,500.
Okay.
So you could say out of every call you get, every phone call that comes in your door,
right?
If you were to take your revenue and divide it by all the booked jobs,
right,
it should be $1,500.
So let's use 1,000 as easy math.
Yeah.
Right. Because you got plumbers listening. And so you say, okay, over the next 5 to 7 years, they're going to use me every other year for roughly $1,000.
Yep.
So let's just go really, really conservative.
Yep.
This is how I sold Angie. Only 5 years. We're going to get rid of the 7. They're going to use this every other. So we got 1, 2, 3 opportunities.
Yep.
So that customer's worth $3,000 to me.
Yep.
Probably more, but let's just say it's just $3,000.
Yep.
And on Angie, you're not going to pay $200 for an individual lead, but the amount to be able to close the lead. So that's what you were saying as far as like the cost to acquire that specific customer.
Yep.
So I had to spend $200 on leads to be able to close that one customer.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, fine. So it cost you $200. Cost you $200. You made $3,000 over the course of 5 years.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound super juicy until you do it again tomorrow.
Right.
And then the next day.
The real math is the real maths out like it's probably like $600 to make $3,000.
Right.
And so the game in home service is speed to lead, answer my phone, get really good at booking those calls so that you don't miss any of those, and then get really good at turning that into an average ticket.
Yeah.
Just because it costs money to get a customer.
Right.
Just it's how it is. And then have some sort of mechanism to retain them over that 5 to 7 year period.
Right.
Otherwise, no bueno.
Yeah.
You're out of business.
Yeah.
You ain't making enough money.
Yep.
No way.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity in that, but I think that what you just broke down there for your listener is just super valuable, mostly because that's how business owners think. That's not how plumbers think.
No.
That's how business owners think.
Yeah.
Going back to the game of business.
Yep.
It's just the moving of money.
It is. Yep.
That's all it is.
And it's at the end of the day, it's just numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Just knowing your numbers.
I can pull this number, or I can pull this lever,
and
it costs me X, and they're going to get so many leads from this type of person.
Yep.
Angie, Thumbtack, my website, fill it in the blank. Doesn't matter. Yep. I need leads. In fact, when I speak on marketing, I was just up in Minnesota doing a workshop with some contractors, but it's like, you need to be obsessed with getting leads.
Yep.
And most people just aren't. They're just like, okay, well, just the next one. It's like, no. I am obsessed with getting leads. It's like, hook me up.
Yep.
That is the absolute lifeblood. And so I'll figure out the rest, but you got to get leads, man. And obviously the very next step is the sales process we talked about. But your ability to pull these levers is the game of business.
Yeah.
We can't be thinking, 200 in, 500 out. That doesn't work. It's like, oh, no. 500 was just step one.
Yep.
This is unless you're not going to be in business next year or 5 years from now.
Right.
But you are, though. You are running the same circles that you are today, beating your head up against the same wall that you are today.
Yep.
Because 5 years ago, you didn't listen to Jared about how to get leads and turn it into a lifetime customer over 5 years.
Yep.
That's why that plumbing business will always be $800K or whatever.
Yep. It's very true.
So anyway.
Well, cool, man. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
We talked about all kinds of stuff.
If somebody wanted to get a hold of your coaching program, where can they find more about you?
Yeah, gatheringthekings.com. And it truly is a mastermind community. So
when you say that, what do you mean?
Yeah, I was going to say not a coaching program where, of course, there's going to be information that me and my team provide to help you grow your business, but it is an environment. It's a table that you can sit at where there's other entrepreneurs who are also doing this thing, doing the business thing, doing the marriage thing, doing the health and the faith thing, doing the kids thing. And what we're really trying to do is just win in all areas. And what I have found is that when I sit at a table with a Jared or with other people who are also winning in all the areas, man, it is, of course, inspiration and motivation and energy, sure. That feeling is like no other room that you're going to be in. But then I get strategies and tactics and relationships, all the stuff that we talked about here today. Like we're going to go have some dinner here tonight and this conversation is going to continue because we're both eating this up. Just like we were before. We were talking business before we click the record button. It's like, this is what we do. And then we're going to walk away from this scenario and be like, man, I'm going to go implement this, or I'm going to buzz Chaz on this, or I'm going to buzz Jared on this. And that how now takes us both to another level.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to facilitate environments where that can happen organically, of course, but just with entrepreneurs from all across the country. We've got all different types of businesses. We're family oriented, and we want to see each other win.
Cool. Who's the ideal person that needs to get into that?
Yeah, well, it's the person that wants to win in all areas. And so we've got folks that are just in year 1 or 2 in their business, all the way to they've been in business for 20 years, making millions. And we've got kind of different tiers, different size companies. But whatever table you need to specifically sit at, we can kind of help you with that. But you need to get into a room that is winning,
cool.
And we can help facilitate that.
I like that.
Yeah, thanks,
cool,
man.
Appreciate
you having me on, dude. Your stuff is so good. Like I said, that the content is how I even found you to begin with, and it's helped me personally and my team. So
cool.
I just appreciate all that you do, and I hope that your listeners continue to get good stuff from you, and of course, give you the reviews and the 5 stars and all the fun stuff that goes along with the podcasting. So.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
See ya.